Part 5. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bh Yaoye 11U. Chapter 43. Lu Bachan turned around awkwardly. Are you dizzy? Do I still wear silk clothes on the battlefield? As a target? Or do I want to make my superiors and colleagues remember me more deeply? Su Qingjao rolled her eyes at him. What a scumbag. Tell me, why did you make me silk clothes and let me wear them on the battlefield? Lu Bachan circled around her. Su Qingyu was so entangled by him that she waved him away. Then he explained, silk clothes are slippery. If you are stabbed by a stray arrow, wearing silk clothes underneath can also use the smooth properties of silk to pull out the stray arrow. The arrows are all barbs. If it is ordinary clothes and a large piece of flesh is pulled out, if the wound is not treated properly on the battlefield, the person will die from the wound even if he does not die immediately. Moreover, silk has good thermal insulation properties, so it can be of some use in the wild in winter. And its burning speed is slow, and it will automatically extinguish after burning for a while. Therefore, because of its flame retardancy, in addition to making clothes, silk fabrics are now used to make home textiles, bedding, cushions, curtains, etc. Lu Bachan was dumbfounded. It's confusing and sweet at the same time. He had never heard of silk having such a use. This woman, a forager in the countryside, still knows this? Is it true? Has she thought so much about me? Seeing his pensive look, Su Qingyu didn't know whether to believe it or not. She shook her head and turned to go to bed. There is nothing to argue with this scumbag, she has no actual combat experience, she is just trying to increase his chances of survival. After all, they are a couple. It's not easy to come together across the gap of hundreds or thousands of years. It's all fate. When Lu Bachan came to his senses, he found that the other party had climbed onto the bed. Hum your teeth again, this woman. Does Hyogong know? Before my husband even got into bed, he climbed in and fell asleep in the bed. People like Wu said that she slept outside in case Lu Shenkai needed water at night. This woman. There is no husband in his eyes. But after thinking about it, she went to Zhang Dachui's shop today to make a breast shield for him. She bought silk and was reluctant to make clothes for him, but she made them for him. She just wanted him to survive. My heart was filled with emotion again. This woman is real. It must be intentional to tease his heartstrings and make him moved when there is nothing wrong. I just want him to be moved beyond measure and stop picking wildflowers outside. Woman. Lu Bachan sniffed and jumped on the bed. For the first time, I looked forward to my daughter and son. He wants to have a child of their own blood with his wife and accompany her on his behalf. The next day, Su Qingjao woke up and Lu Bachan was nowhere to be seen again. Last night, she was in a daze and listened to his explanation, saying that all the 5 taels of gold ingots were used to make things for body protection. In the past few days, she had been fighting with her master and several brothers in the Yanggui martial arts hall. Su Qingyu leaned on the bedside and thought for a while. His master taught him so wholeheartedly, but if she didn't show it, she might have to use the martial arts hall to protect him in the future. After thinking for a while, I got up, washed myself, and then went to Jixiang Bakery. When she arrived, several masters from Pingchuan County were already there. After the two parties said hello, Su Qingyu instructed them to clean the oven in the backyard. Then he went into the kitchen and taught them how to make swan cakes and lotus cakes, and then taught them how to use fermentation to make various pastas. I was so busy that I also ate at Jixiang shop at noon. It was not until the beginning of the Shen dynasty that a few masters were able to learn to a certain extent. Since the oven had to be dried overnight, Su Qingyu said she would come back tomorrow. Then he carried the freshly baked swan cakes, lotus cakes, and white jade cakes to the Yanggui pavilion. "Who are you looking for?" asked a 12 or 13-year-old disciple guarding the gate. Su Qingyu smiled at him. handed him a piece of lotus pastry, and said, "I am Lu Bachan's wife. I'm here to see Master Ma." The young disciple stared at the boss. "Ah, you are brother Lu's sister-in-law. I, I will go and inform you right away." He turned around and was about to go in. He only took 2 steps and ran back. "Sister-in-law, come with me." "Go in." "Good. What is this lotus flower for?" "You can try some food." "It's actually edible? How can such a beautiful lotus be eaten? No wonder it smells so good. I want to eat it when I smell it, but I can't bear to eat it." The little disciple kept talking all the way, holding a lotus cake and looking at it. I looked again and again, holding back my saliva. Seeing his lively and cute appearance, Sukingyu took another swan cake from the basket and gave it to him. "Ah, this is a swan. Is this also for eating? It looks like it's done." Holding one in each hand, looking left and right, reluctant to eat. Before they even arrived at the school grounds, they shouted from afar, "Master, Brother Lu, Madam Lu, you are here." A bunch of young guys on the school field were competing with each other and were attracted by his voice, so they all looked over. Lu Bachan rushed over first. "Why are you here?" "I stopped by to take a look." Master Ma, dressed in bunts, walked over surrounded by his disciples. He glanced at her and nodded with a smile. "You are Bochang's bride." "Hello, Master Ma." "Well. Hello, sister-in-law. We didn't see you at Lu's house that day." Sukingyu also nodded to them one by one. "Let's sit in the backyard," Master Ma said. "Ah, Xiaoduzi, what are you holding in your hand?" "It's food. My sister-in-law gave it to me," Xiaoduzi said while dodging to the side. "How can I bear that he is so young, but he is already surrounded by several fellow disciples." "Master, the brothers are trying to steal mine." Xiaoduzi let out a ghostly cry. Sukingyu looked at the number of people present, and there were only 6 or 7 people there, so she handed the basket to Lu Bachan. It was also the first time for Lu Bachan to see it, and he didn't know the situation. As soon as he received it, he was surrounded by his fellow apprentices. "Don't grab it, don't grab it. I have to take it to my master's wife." Lu Bachan distributed it while protecting the basket. Fortunately, Suqing'an brought enough. They were all experimental products made by several chefs. Although there were some flaws in the appearance, the taste was not bad. To outsiders, it was already very delicate and beautiful. Suqing'an followed Lu Bachan and Master Ma to the backyard. He took a look at Master Ma in front of him. He was about 40 years old, with an upright posture, a strong lower body, and his every move was different from that of ordinary people. This Master Ma was obviously a man with a story. Lu Bachan only said that he moved to Fengting town a few years ago with his sick wife and no children around him. He said that several sons died on the battlefield. He took his wife to a different environment for recuperation. He opened a Yangui martial arts hall in the town and accepted a few apprentices. Xu Xiu could accept them or not, and he didn't see what business he did. A few years ago, seeing that LV Bachan liked martial arts and was sincere, she accepted him. The 4 of them came to the backyard, and Suqing'an saw a middle-aged woman, dressed simply, thin, carrying a kettle and burning flowers. She had a pretty face, and a faint look on her face, with a hint of illness and a hint of insoluble sorrow. "Li Niang, Madame Bachan is here to see you." The woman turned her head at the voice, looked at Suqing'an, smiled at her, put down the kettle, and called her over. Suqing'an heard that she was not in good health, so she hurried over in 3 or 2 steps, supported her, and helped her to sit down at a table. "You sit down too, thank you for coming to see me." Ma Shi Niang greeted Suqing'an and greeted each other a few words. After a while, a young woman came over and served a pot of tea and snacks, and stood behind Ma Shi Niang. Suqing'an saw that she was combing her hair like a woman, and glanced at her. "Try the snacks brought by Bachan's family." I just saw them and thought they were so exquisite. Several monkeys had already snatched them. I would have snatched them regardless of my status, Master Ma said to his wife softly, and picked up a piece for her and put it on the plate in front of her. Really? Yeah, it's really exquisite. How are they made? These are lotus pastries, swan pastries, and white jade cakes. Master's wife, try them. Oh, they really look like them. I thought they were real lotus at first glance. This swan is also lifelike. How are they made? They are really beautiful. Is this white jade cake? It's as white as a piece of jade. I can't bear to eat it. Then I'll eat it first. Master Ma saw that his wife was just looking at it, so he picked up a piece and put it in his mouth. Well, crispy, sweet, not greasy, delicious. Seeing her husband praising her, Master's wife couldn't help but pick it up and put it in her mouth. And Lu Bachan couldn't help it and swallowed it in 2 or 3 bites. I couldn't help but reach into the plate again. It's delicious. You must have had some adventure. You can make such beautiful and delicious pastries. Ma's wife looked at Su Qing'an and said, Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Ba Jiaoye 11U. Chapter 44. Su Qingyu saw everyone looking at her and organized her words. Cai Dao said, when I was a child, there was an orphaned woman in the village. I thought she was pitiful, so I often brought her some food and drinks, helped her carry water, chop firewood, and do some housework. She taught me some skills. After hearing this, Ma Shiniang said with emotion, yes, good people should have good luck. If good people don't have good luck, bad people will still live well, wouldn't it be a mess? Liniang Master Ma interrupted hurriedly when he saw that his wife was talking to herself again. Ma Shiniang came back to her senses and looked at Su Qingyu with some embarrassment. I made you laugh. I usually stay alone in the backyard to recuperate, and no one talks to me. If you are free in the future, you can come over and talk to me. Su Qingyu nodded in agreement. She felt that the woman in front of her made her heart ache. Maybe it was the slight sadness between her eyebrows that made her unable to bear to refuse. He chatted with her for a long time and watched her flowers and plants and her embroidery work. The embroidery is vivid, with butterflies dancing gracefully on the embroidery, and the embroidered red plums seemed to make people smell the fragrance of the flowers. Seeing that she liked it, Ma Shiniang generously gave her several embroidery samples. Su Qingyu saw that she was sincerely sending him off, so she accepted it graciously without refusing. Seeing that she looked tired, he said goodbye and left. Lu Bachan saw her out. He told her that the wife's health has been bad since her sons died, but she is still energetic today. Su Qingyu was a little sad after hearing this. Several sons died in succession, what a blow it was. Mother and son are so close to each other, it's hard to survive. So I decided to come and accompany her often in the future. Thinking of the young woman with her hair combed next to the master's wife, she asked him again. Lu Bachan said, that was the girl next to master. Master used her as a little girl, but master kept confiscating her. Master has a good relationship with master. If any of our brothers dare to be half-hearted, he can interrupt us. Your master is very good. You should learn more from your master. Tisk, woman, I knew you would say that. He stretched out his arms and handed the basket to her. These lotus cakes and swan cakes are delicious. I haven't eaten enough yet. You can make some more when you go back. I'll go back and eat them tonight. No time. Think beautifully. The process is complicated. This woman. I simply don't take him seriously. Other women regard their husband's words as if they are words of wisdom and dare not refute even a single word. This woman not only ignores him, but also dares to refute him. This is going to God. Lu Bachan shook his fist at Su Qingyu's back. But thinking about her bringing cakes to his master, his wife, and his brothers, it made him more proud, and he felt that he had a lot of them, so he didn't care about her as a little girl. He stood and watched for a while, until Sukingyu's figure disappeared around the corner, and then he turned back to the martial arts hall. "Senior brother, I also want to eat lotus cake, swan cake, and white jade cake." As soon as Lu Bachan entered the door, Xiaoduzi came to him. Lu Bachan was very happy and patted his shoulder. "Easy to say, let your sister-in-law do it for you next time." "When?" "Next time, next time." "When is the next time?" "In the next few days." Sukingnao went to Jixiang shop to teach the chef how to make pastries. Occasionally, she would take some pastries to visit Ma Shiniang and chat with her. Like Lu Bachan, he stayed away from home all day. This made Wu and Lu Yuzhi very uncomfortable, and they said a lot of small things around Lu Shenke, who had returned from purchasing goods. At the dinner table, Lu Shenke caught Lu Bachan and said a few words. Lu Bachan was so angry after a few words that he said he didn't care about them and let them go. Lu Bachan glanced at Mrs. Wu very proudly, and she was so angry that Mrs. Wu felt chest tight and breathless. Which newly married daughter-in-law is not obedient and obeys orders at home? Her new daughter-in-law is missing every day, and her mother-in-law is treated as a transparent person. His face didn't show anything, he just planned to wait until Lu Bachan left home before making any plans. In a blink of an eye, the day came when Lu Bachan was leaving home. The night before leaving, Lu Shenke finally realized that his son was leaving home. Whether he could come back or not would depend on God's favor. Then there was some sadness. Keep a straight face all day. After dinner, Lu Bachan was called to the study. He handed him 50 taels of silver notes and said, "Take it with you. Don't think that Dad gave you too little. Our small shop doesn't make much money in a year, and the whole family still needs food and clothing." Seeing that Lu Bachan just accepted it silently without saying anything, he sighed. Then he said, "I know you blame Dad, but your second mother-in-law has also come home, and several younger siblings have also been born. You can't stuff them back again. You are Dad's first son, and you are Dad's blood. How can Dad not be the same, painful?" Lu Bachan snorted. "But when I thought he was leaving soon, I didn't want to get angry with him. My mother is gone, my grandparents are gone, and the only one left is my father. I can't just throw him away." Just held back from getting angry. Lu Shenke sighed again. "When you were a child, your father held you in his arms and it hurt. He would ride on his neck and take you shopping to look at the lights. When you reached the age of studying, your father also carefully selected a husband for you, but you were a student. I can't read it. You blame your father for raising your second brother, but your second brother is better at reading than you." Lu Bachan finally couldn't help but retorted, "How much better than me? Now that I think about it, I can't even pass the Tongsheng exam. I go to Pingchuan County every day to participate in poetry and cultural gatherings. I spend a lot of money, and I can't even pass the Tongsheng exam. Not only did you take the exam once, but what did you think of him? You are the only one who regards him as a treasure who has changed the family. You." Lu Shenke was very angry. Thinking that he was leaving home soon, he calmed down and said, "I know you don't like your siblings, but they are also my father's flesh and blood. In the future, the whole family will still support each other. Hey, we still support each other." With Lu Bozu's appearance, if he really achieved fame, wouldn't he be able to recognize his elder brother standing in front of him with his nostrils turned upward? It's just that his father is blind and whitewashing the piece. Seeing that he couldn't listen, Lu Shenke suddenly didn't know how to continue speaking. What comes out of a mother's womb is like fighting cocks every day, let alone what comes out of a mother's womb. But he still subconsciously hoped that the children could coexist peacefully. After all, they were the closest people in the world. Seeing his depressed look, Lu Bachan suddenly felt distressed and intolerable. "This is my biological father, the biological father who guarded the door every day when he was a child, looking forward to coming back. After a pause, he said, "You are you and they are them. As long as they recognize me, I will recognize them. After I leave, you can help me take care of my wife. No matter what happens to me in the future, as long as she is still willing to stay in the Lu family, you must ensure that she has food and drink, and you cannot drive her away. If you are lucky and have grandchildren in the future, please take more care of them for my sake. They are still your flesh and blood." Lu Shenke was still sulking just now, but suddenly he was a little sad by Lu Bachan's words. He really felt that his son was leaving, and his future life and death were uncertain, and he didn't know whether he could come back. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 45. LV Shenke said in a hoarse voice, "Do you miss your father so much? I don't even want my own grandchildren. Don't worry, as long as Dad has something to eat, they will have something to eat. That's good, you'd better do what you say." LV Shenke was a little angry. "You little bastard, you don't believe what your father said." LV Bachan avoided his gaze. "Huh. Also, tell Wu not to interfere with the land and house of my grandparents. I gave them to my wife and have transferred them to her. If she is not in our family in the future, let her take them away and treat them as her dowry. Yeah. Also, don't interfere with what she wants to do in the future. She doesn't want to live at home anymore, she wants to live outside. You are not allowed to stop her, just treat it as a separation." "What are you talking about? How can a young wife live alone outside? Our family is not separated." Lu Bachan stiffened his neck and said loudly, "Then treat it as a separation. Otherwise, it's better to divide the family before I leave. I'm afraid your Wu is not willing. Once the family is divided, if there is another conscription, your son who hopes to change the family may have to go to the battlefield like me to fight for his life. The separation is still for my wife to live alone, and I think Wu is willing to let her live alone." Lu Shenke was blocked by his words and had to agree. The father and son fell silent again. Lu Shenke looked at the son who was already much taller than him, thinking about how he was just born, how he grew up little by little in the cradle, and how he grew up to what he is now, and then he was angry with him every day. He was about to leave, and he might never see him again in the future, and suddenly felt a little sad. Thinking of the 50 taels of silver he had just given him, he was not sure if the 50 taels of silver was enough for him. So he said, "How about I go get you another 50 taels?" Lu Bachan looked at him deeply and looked away. "Keep it. Don't be silly and give it all to heartless people. When you are old and lying in bed, no one will take care of you. When you have no money to make a living, no one will even answer you when you call for help. You kid, you think so badly of your brothers. Humph, I'm afraid that no one will take care of you when you are old, and you will think of your eldest son who doesn't know how to live when you lie in bed." Lu Shenke wanted to say something to him, but when he looked up, he saw his eyes were red, so he looked away and said in a muffled voice, "Dad knows." Just as he was about to say something else, he opened his mouth and saw that Lu Bachan had turned around and left, waving at him as he walked. "It's okay to know, go to bed early when you are old. This kid. He hasn't finished speaking yet. A person must take good care of himself, don't rush forward foolishly, no matter what, you must come back alive, even if you have a limp leg or a broken arm, your father will not laugh at you." LV Shenke sat in the study room depressed for half a night before turning back to his room. Seeing that Wu was not asleep, he didn't say much, took off his clothes and climbed onto the bed to sleep. Wu stood up and made way for him, asking him, "Did you give him money? How much did you take?" LV Shenke lay down on the bed facing inward, pulled up the quilt, and said in a muffled voice, "I gave him money a few days ago, give it back. Our family's money is not blown by the wind." Wu saw that the father and son had talked in the study room for so long, and she was nervous. When she heard that LV Shenke didn't give LV Bachan money, she raised her mouth. She also went to bed. "You work so hard outside, tomorrow I will tell the children to be frugal. You don't know how expensive firewood and rice are if you don't run the family." Boziu also said today that there will be a poetry meeting in the county in a few days, and he needs money. I said it's not easy for you to make money, so he pushed it. Yes. But if the child wants to make progress, you should not stop him. If he thinks it is useful, let him go. The family can't lose the money for his studies. My dear, you are right. Wu's mouth corners rose, and she agreed, turning around and hugging Lu Shenke. On the other side, Lu Bachan walked around the yard alone, calmed down, and then went into the room. Seeing Su Qingmei busy in the room, he felt warm in his heart. "Why aren't you asleep yet? Pack your luggage for you." Lu Bachan walked over and took a look. "Aren't they all packed? Just travel light. If you bring so much and others take it away, I will feel bad." Su Qingmei rolled her eyes at him. "It's just some medicine, clothes, shoes, and socks. How much can it be? Where are the things you beat?" Lu Bachan dragged out a bundle for her to see. Su Qing'an saw a black, inconspicuous soft whip, a grey soft armor and a dagger in it. Lu Bachan saw Su Qing'an's calm eyes and said, "Don't look at them as inconspicuous. This soft armor is made of python skin. Ordinary swords and guns cannot pierce it, and ordinary fire cannot burn it through. Like this dagger that can cut hair, it is a real good thing. They are all given to me by my master for self-defense. Look at this soft whip, it can be used as a belt and a weapon, you see." Su Qing'an saw that he didn't know which mechanism he turned on, and the soft whip actually spun out thorns all over the body. "It's amazing. If it hits a person, the skin and flesh can be torn." Su Qing'an praised it, moved closer to touch it, and sighed at the craftsmanship of the craftsmen of this era. "Did Zhang Dachui make it?" Lu Bachan nodded. "If you have something to fight in the future, go to him. He has a good craftsmanship. But don't tell anyone, master said he doesn't want anyone to know." Su Qing'an nodded. "This whip is worn on the waist, and most people won't notice it. The soft armor is worn on the body, and no one will snatch it away. The inconspicuous dagger should not be snatched away by others." Su Qing'an immediately felt relieved. She turned around and told him what she had prepared. "Wear this inner garment. I have sewed silver bills on the corners of the garment and wrapped it with oilcloth. You can open it and use it when you need it. They are all small amounts. In case you can't find a place to exchange them, I also sewed a few gold beans inside. If it gets dirty, just take off the outer coat to wash it, and dry the inner garment in the sun. Yes. I have prepared several pairs of shoes, all with thick soles and many layers, which are durable. I have thickened the elbows and other joints of this outer garment to make it wear resistant. Don't think it's stuffy, such thick cloth is wear resistant and durable. I made several silk inner garments for you, you can change them, and you have to wear them even if you have soft armor." "Yes." Su Qingmei was about to say something else when she was hugged tightly by that guy. She paused and wanted to push him away, but he hugged her tightly. Su Qingmei saw that he was in a low mood, so she let him be. Lu Bachan buried his head in her shoulder blade and said in a muffled voice, "Woman, you can't stay away from home just because I'm not here, okay? You have to wait for me at home, I will definitely come back. If I find out that you are having an affair, I will never let you go even if I become a ghost." Su Qingmei twisted his waist hard when she heard it. "I'm talking about you. You are having an affair outside. I can't even save my life, but you are still having an affair." Su Qingmei ignored him and let him hold her. After a while, he heard him say in a muffled voice, "If I mean if I can't come back, you should remarry. Don't stay alone in the Lu family and look at Wu's face. She won't treat you well. Yes, seeing that she agreed, Lu Bachan raised his head and looked at her steadily. Do you really want to remarry? Didn't you ask me to remarry? I just said it casually, and you took it seriously. I took it seriously. You stinky woman. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Ba Jiaoye 11U. Chapter 46. Before going to bed, Sukingyu summoned the system. These days, she has been asking Lu Bachan to bring back some ingredients one after another. Lu Bachan didn't know why, but he also brought back a lot of them for her. Sukingyu had sold everything to the system and wanted to exchange some medicine for Lu Bachan to take away. She took it out of the system, put it in her hand, and said to Lu Bachan, "What do you think this is?" "What's this?" Lu Bachan came over, grabbed her fingertips in his hand, and turned them over. He looked at his palm prints and saw that Sukingyu didn't express anything. He responded with an "Oh, you're white. You're a lot whiter. Do you want me to see if you're white?" "Let me see. Your face is white too. What if I don't recognize you, Chai Huo girl, when I come back next time?" Sukingyu picked up the medicine that he had turned over on the bed and sent it back to the system. It was really invisible. It seems that only she can see what comes out of the system. This useless system. Seeing that Lu Bachan wanted to hold her face and take a closer look, Sukingyu was so annoyed that she slapped his hand away, turned around and lay down. "Sleep." "Ah, are you going to sleep now?" "I still have something to say. My father said." Sukingnao listened to the chattering in his ears and answered every word. Lu Bachan became anxious when he saw that Sukingyu was almost asleep. "Why did you fall asleep? The night is so long, and I don't know if my son is there yet. Why don't you hurry up and work harder while he's here? This woman wouldn't think that once she enters the soul, everything will be fine. This indifferent attitude is so irritating. Shaking her, you won't have a son. No more babies." Sukingyu pulled the quilt over her head. Lu Bachan pulled it off again, "But I want to give birth." "No baby." Sukingyu pulled it over and covered it back. Lu Bachan pulled her directly. "Get up." "I can't afford it." Lu Bachan looked at the woman wrapped in silkworm chrysalises and sulked, "You stinky woman, you are sizing me up and don't dare to force me, right, so you know what it means to be a positive husband." He pulled off the quilt and covered himself with it. The next day, Sukingyu woke up with soreness all over and kicked him. Seeing his attentive attitude, I thought he would leave soon, so I didn't plan to get angry with him. "Pack his luggage in the room and tell him to see if he can find any news about Suqing Song and whether he is alive or dead, and will send a letter back." Lu Bachan nodded in agreement. He picked up another piece of clothing and told him, "You made a fuss about this piece of clothing yesterday, so I forgot to mention it. It's a down jacket. Don't look at it, it's inconspicuous, but it's light and warm. I made Joe, my aunt, went to the countryside to look for white geese and bought a dozen of them to make them out of fine velvet. A down jacket requires the feathers of 7 or 8 ducks and geese. Sukingyu bought a dozen of them and picked them over to make such a one. It is specially made to be wide and long. It can be worn as clothes in winter and as a quilt when marching in the field." Hearing what Sukinjao said, Lu Bachan turned over the down jacket and looked at it. He was amazed. It was really hot and sweaty when he put it on. He saw that it was not as heavy as a cotton padded jacket. It was such a big piece and it didn't take up much space when put away. The place is not heavy. Feeling happy in her heart, she wanted to hug Sukingyu again, but Sukingyu avoided her. When Lu Bachan saw her hiding away, he glared at her and laughed at her. "Did you have no clothes to wear when you were a child, so you saved chicken and duck feathers to make clothes?" Sukingyu rolled her eyes at him, not wanting to get angry with the scumbag who had a generation gap. "There are no breeding farms these days, so it is not easy to find a dozen big white geese. When the two of them arrived at the main room with their luggage, they saw the eldest aunt holding Lu Baxiao wiping her tears, and his wife Huang, with her belly bulging out, was sobbing beside her. The whole family in the hall looked depressed. Seeing Lu Bachan appear, Lao Lutu and Grandma Lu called him over again, pulling him to cry and wipe away his tears. The two eldest grandsons were about to leave. Life or death was unknown, and they might have to send the white-haired one to the black-haired one, so tears fell in their eyes. Wu also stood aside and looked at Lu Bachan with a sad look. Next to Lu Shenke, she said a few loving words to Lu Bachan like a mother, and among the cubs she had given birth to, Lu Bozong approached Lu Bachan with a worried look on his face. Lu Bachan also smiled at him and touched his head. Lu Bachan looked calm, without any sign of rushing to the battlefield, and he comforted everyone one by one. It wasn't until Lu's father said that it was getting late and he would send them to gather at the entrance of the town. Officials from the army would soon check the list of soldiers in the town and every township and village. Then everyone gathered around the two of them and walked out the door. Su Qingnao saw that everyone was surrounding Lu Bachan and Lu Baxiao, and Huang was following behind, holding her belly in her hands and wiping tears, so she went over and helped her out. Huang glanced at her gratefully, and the two followed everyone out. Just as he walked to the door, he saw two young women standing at the door of Lu's house, one looking like a master and the other a servant, dressed like Xiaojiabiu. "Why are you here?" Lu Bachan was very surprised. Seeing everyone looking over, the girl who looked like a maid said, "Brother Lu, our girl is here to see you off. She came from Pingchuan County before dawn." Everyone looked at Lu Bachan again. Wu and Lu Bozu had playful expressions on their faces, waiting for a good show. Su Qingyu looked over with a calm face, sizing up the master and the servant, thinking about their relationship with Lu Bachan. They rushed here before dawn. It seemed that they had a good relationship. Hearing someone sneer beside him, he turned around to look. Then I heard Lu Yuzhi say in a medium voice, "This person just got married, and I thought the prodigal son was coming back, but I didn't expect there was someone outside already." Tisk. "Stop talking sarcastically," Lu Bachan glared at Lu Yuzhi. He quickly glanced at Su Qingyu, and when he saw his wife making eye contact with him, he hurriedly looked away. The cold and clear look in her eyes made Lu Bachan's heart pounding. His wife must have misunderstood. Then he said to the master and servant, "Huayan, thank you for coming to see me off. Please wait a moment, and I will say a few words to my wife." After that, he turned around and pulled Su Qingyu and walked home. Su Qingyu didn't want to move at all, but he pulled her hard, but he couldn't help it, so she had to follow him. The two entered the house and stopped some distance away from everyone. Su Qingyu looked at him steadily, her eyes cold. As expected, men can't be trusted. The two of them are almost becoming an old married couple these days, and she is almost confused. "It's not what you think." Su Qingyu waved him away, not intending to listen to his nonsense explanation. There was a hint of disappointment in my heart. Lu Bachan was a little anxious. The two had been getting along well since they got married. After he left, his wife would stay at home and wait for his return. But once the beauty comes, the lady may have misunderstood his philandering. He grabbed Su Qingyu's arm and explained, "It's not what you think. I have nothing to do with her, we just met each other. Huayan is a poor woman who was sold by her family. I helped her in the building before. She always remembers it. I didn't even know she was coming to see me off today." "Is she from Hualu?" Su Qingyu was stunned. "Madam, she has a tender heart." Author, Bhajiao 11U. Chapter 47. Such a girl with such a graceful temperament is actually from Hualu? Then she realized that this guy had lied to her before, saying that he only went to Hualu to drink sake. People are now chasing him home to see him off. They came from Pingchuan County early in the morning and are always paying attention to his whereabouts. Can this be a normal relationship? This is so affectionate, what can I do without? Who believes it? 6. Sukingyu crossed her arms and looked at him coldly. Lu Bachan felt uneasy and hurriedly approached, but Sukingyu stepped back. He took a step closer, and Sukingyu took a step back. Lu Bachan had to stop and explain anxiously. She was sold into a flower house by her family. That day I went drinking with Zai and the others, and saw her being beaten severely by the madam. I couldn't stand it, so I helped her out, and that's how we got to know each other. Later when we went there again, she always gives us a bottle of wine to drink, and occasionally plays the piano for us. That's all. She and I really have nothing to do with each other. I don't know why she comes to give it to me. Well, looking at the way that guy was jumping around in a hurry, it sounded a bit like the truth. But why doesn't she believe it so much? There must be something. Otherwise, someone could come all the way to see him off. Looking at this guy again, he has sharp eyebrows and starry eyes, a handsome face, and a long body. If he puts on silk clothes and dresses up, he will be a handsome young man. It is normal for others to like him. Seeing Sukingyu sizing him up, Lu Bachan got angry and said, she and I really have nothing to do with each other. Besides, I'm already married, so what else can I have? Besides, I'm leaving right away. We're so far apart, how can she still chase after me? Maybe. We've chased him all the way here. It's not impossible to chase him to the border. How is that possible? Do you think the border is only as far away as from here to Pingchuan County? It would take a few months for a light carriage to catch up to the border. That's all you can imagine. Why can't I think about it anymore? Look, aren't we all here? You woman. It doesn't make sense. I really don't know why she came to see me off. She and I really have nothing to do with each other. I haven't even touched her. Seeing that Sukingyu didn't believe it, she jumped up and down anxiously. Seeing her looking at his hand again, she quickly raised her hand and spread it in front of Sukingyu. Really, you are the only one who has touched it. Just when Sukingyu was about to say something more, Father Lu's voice came from the front, I have to leave. If I miss the time, I will be whipped. Sukingyu had no choice but to stop talking and walk out. Lu Bachan followed her, kept explaining, and wanted to hold her hand, but Sukingyu threw her away. He was so angry that he gritted his teeth and scolded women for being so stubborn. When I got to the door, I didn't dare to look at the beautiful face. Sukingyu, on the other hand, thanked her master and servant. Hua Yan glanced at Lu Bachan, smiled sweetly, and walked up to Sukingyu. You are brother Lu's wife, right? I haven't been able to congratulate you on your marriage before. As he spoke, he took off a jade bracelet on his wrist and handed it to Sukingyu. Just think of this as a congratulatory gift to your sister-in-law. Sukingyu pushed it back. It's too expensive, I can't accept it. How can a rough guy like me afford this kind of bracelet? I'll feel bad if it's broken. Hua Yan was a little at a loss holding the jade bracelet. She looked at Sukingyu and then looked up at Lu Bachan. Lu Bachan then said, you can keep it for yourself. It's hard for us to return such a valuable gift. In the future, I will earn gold and jade for her. Upon hearing this, Hua Yan lowered her head and silently put the jade bracelet back on, her expression unclear. After Sukingyu heard that, her heart moved, she turned to look at him, and then looked away. Lu Yuzhu looked at it with jealousy. The jade bracelet was green and shiny, just by looking at the water, it must be worth a lot of money. People who dig in the dirt in the countryside don't know what they are looking for, huh? I went to take a look at the beauty again, and saw that her clothes were beautiful, her temperament was elegant, and she was looking forward to it. I felt that this was what a woman in a boudoir looked like, and I was very envious. In a blink of an eye, everyone arrived at the entrance of the town. At this time, the town entrance was already crowded with people, and soldiers from all over the country gathered here. There were a few officers who looked like they were lecturing, and a few veterans who were holding soldiers' notebooks and drawing pictures with serious faces. The soldiers and relatives on the side who were bidding farewell all had sad and reluctant faces. When Lu Bachan saw Guanwei, Lu Yezu, and others, he hurried over. With two women following him, he wouldn't be able to walk away. Su Qingyu watched for a while, then looked around for Su Yuwen. I don't know if her father came to see her off. After searching for a while, he saw his father, second uncle, third uncle, and others surrounding Su Yuwen and hurriedly walked over. "Where is the son-in-law?" Father Lu asked. "He's over there with his friends." After speaking, he looked at Su Yuwen. "The second room and his family are all here today." The second aunt was holding Su Yuwen in tears, and Lu Kaya was standing beside her, staring closely at Su Yuwen. They greeted each other and said a few words. It was not easy for Su Qingyu to stand for too long. She came out to see off her husband and son-in-law. She was afraid that the Lu family would talk about her, so she turned around and left. Unexpectedly, Su Yuwen stopped her. The two of them walked together avoiding the Su family. "Qing Lao, I want to ask you a favor." "Brother Wen, tell me." Su Qingyu was a little surprised. "I want to entrust the grass sprout to you." Ah, how to say this? Su Qingyu didn't realize it for a moment. Why did she entrust someone to her? "I don't need you to do anything. Even after I leave, if she has any difficulties at home, you can help her. Nai is sometimes unreasonable, and my mother is soft-hearted. You also saw what happened on the wedding day. Wan, I will definitely keep her when the future comes. She is still young and I don't want you to help her when the time comes." Su Qingyu was surprised to hear these words. "You don't want her to guard you? She's going back to the Lu family, and I don't know where her mother will sell her." Su Yuwen was silent and said, "Decades have been too difficult. When the time comes, you can help her. She is a good woman." Su Qingyu glanced at Lu Kaya and saw her looking over with worry. She remembered that she came here carrying a bag alone on the wedding day and admired her very much. He nodded, "Yes, I will keep an eye on it. I will also explain it to my mother and give her a helping hand." Su Yuwen saluted her very solemnly and thanked her. Su Qingyu avoided it. "Just reassure him." Seeing him turn around and go back to the Su family, I sighed with emotion. "I hope you can survive and take care of her yourself." When I returned to the Lu family, I saw my eldest aunt holding Lu Bashao, so I turned around to find Lu Bachan. Seeing him and Lu Juyi talking to each other, they didn't know what to say and ignored him. Looking at Hua Yan again, she saw that she was staring at Lu Bachan. Su Qingyu wanted to say that men are not important, but suddenly she felt a little depressed. Looking at the baggage that guy was carrying, I really wanted to go up and snatch it away. Why prepare so much for him? Might as well keep the money and spend it yourself. He also had 200 taels sewn into it. Thinking about it, he was really dizzy. Lu Bachansha felt Su Qingyu's gaze and looked over. He saw Su Qingyu glaring at him angrily and staring at his baggage. He hurriedly said to Lu Juyi, "Then I'll ask you. You have many connections. Please help me take care of her. Don't worry. I'm here." Lu Juyi felt very sad when he saw that several of his friends were gone. As long as he is here, he will take good care of their family members so that they have no worries. After Lu Bachan finished speaking hastily, he ran back to Su Qingyu and grabbed Su Qingyu's hand. Su Qingnao didn't let him go, so she had to let him go. Today she was leaving a large event, with men and women hugging each other, and no one said anything when she was grabbed. Hua Yan looked at their intertwined hands and her eyes darkened. The little maid looked at her worriedly and said that she had told her not to come, but she had to come. After a while, the roll call was completed and the team was about to leave, and the crowd burst into tears. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 48. After the team set off, everyone was a little depressed. Huiyan declined the invitation to eat and returned to Pingchuan County. Father Lu took everyone in the Lu family to a restaurant and ordered 3 tables of food. In addition to Lu Bachan and Lu Baxiao, the 2 aunts each had a son who was expropriated. A total of 4 of Lao Luchali's grandsons were taken away, and the old man couldn't even eat. Sitting in a daze, Lu Bozu was not affected at all. He was suppressed and did not go to school, but he came to see him off, but he did not say a word to his brother and did not do anything on his face. Thinking of the fact that Lu Bachan, who was quarreling with him, would no longer be in the house, it felt like a huge boulder had been lifted off his chest, and his whole body felt as if the clouds had dispersed. Only his food was delicious among the people at the table. Lao Luta frowned and looked at him several times. After dinner, Lao Lu took Grandma Lu, who still wanted to stay in the town for 2 days, and everyone left. The Lu family members also went about their own business. Su Qingyu returned to her room and suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. The house was not big, but she just felt empty. Without Lu Bachan chattering in her ear, she felt awkward. I fell on the bed and prepared to rest for a while. I thought that I had gotten used to Lu Bachan's presence these days and was still sulking because of Huiyan's appearance in the morning. I felt a little angry with myself. He grabbed Lu Bachan's pillow in his hand and beat it several times to vent his anger. When I put it back, I found something underneath. Hey, what is this? Why do you have a wallet? Tenbi sat up, took it out, looked at it, and poured out the contents. 2 pieces of paper, a banknote, and a piece of letterhead. After shaking it off and looking at it, I understood. Lu Bachan left all the 50 taels of silver he received from Lu's father to her. He also asked her to exchange the 50 taels for a large gold ingot and bring it back to the box. The letter told her not to flirt with women, but to stay at home and wait for him to come back. If he can't come back, let her remarry. But find a good home. If a son is born, he will be called Wei Yang, and if a daughter is born, she will be called Wei 11. Su Qingyu looked at the 50 taels of silver notes and sniffed. There is no trace of Wei Yang or Wei 11. Lu Bachan, you scumbag, you better come back alive and give me a name, you think so much. He stuffed the letter and banknotes back into his purse, fell back on the bed, pulled the quilt, and covered his head. The next day, Su Qingnao counted the silver in his hand and found that there were still 62 taels, and he knew it in his mind. He took all the money and banknotes with him and left the room. But he didn't want to be stopped by Wu in the courtyard. Mrs. Wu gave her some pieces of cloth. Bo Cheng's grandma sent her grandchildren away, and she was still unhappy. So your father said that he would pull some cloth and make them 2 sets of clothes to show our filial piety. You are the only one. I haven't been to the Lu family in the countryside since I got married. Take these pieces of cloth back and make them 2 sets of clothes, so that they can know your grandson-in-law's filial piety. Several pieces of cloth were suddenly stuffed into Su Qingyu's arms, and she hugged them blankly. Wu shook her hand and said, you work slowly and don't rush the work. The work must be done carefully. Your grandma wears it at home, and the most important thing is that it is durable and durable. After Wu finished speaking, she walked away smoothly. Seeing that she didn't even wait for her reply, Su Qingyu left in a hurry, dumbfounded. Are you afraid of her rejection? As soon as Lu Bachan left, would he find something for her to do? After you finish making the clothes for the elderly, what else should you do next time? Does this mean you don't want her to go out? Wu really didn't want her to go out. When she arrived at Lu's house, Lu Bachan's biological mother was still there. She was afraid of being gossiped about, so she didn't dare to leave the house. She was also in decline at home, working in the kitchen every day and cooking 3 meals a day for Ms. Lu. When Mr. Lu was ill and lying in bed, he decoctioned her medicine and served her day and night. There is no reason for her daughter-in-law to enjoy happiness just because she got married. I don't have to do anything, just hang out outside every day. Just like the young mistress, she has nothing to worry about and there is no smoke from the kitchen. This firewood girl who married from the countryside, who works in the fields, is she married to live in peace and happiness? No matter if it's a kiss or whatever, she is still the mother-in-law. Doesn't the daughter-in-law marry just to serve her mother-in-law? When she married into that family, she suffered so much trouble from her mother-in-law and grandmother-in-law. He went to the ground before the sun rose, and he was still in the field when it got dark, his stomach growling with hunger, and he didn't dare to put down his hoe. After finally returning home, she couldn't rest. She had to wash the whole family's clothes until midnight. What a hard day. Fortunately, she fell in love with the salesman Lu Shenke, jumped out of that pit of fire, and is now living a good life. How many years has it taken her to live the life she has now? Su, who was married from the countryside, wanted to enjoy happiness as soon as she got married. How can such a good thing happen? That brat Lu Bachan has never taken her seriously. If he can't deal with him, how can he deal with someone from the countryside? Wu returned to the room, and Lu Yuzhu was leaning on the couch. When he saw her coming in, he asked, "Did you give it to her?" "Yes. Mom gave it to her, can she still accept it?" "I am the mother-in-law and she is the daughter-in-law, how can she refute it?" Wu said with some pride. "Mom, you have a solution. You should let her do some work. You don't live at home every day. Do you think you will be happy if you marry in the town? You eat our food and use our family's food, but you don't want to work hard and have her dream of being big." "Dad, too really, if I had to do it, which girl would do needlework every day? I even made an appointment with Ruyu to listen to a book." Mrs. Wu nodded her forehead. "Your father doesn't want to detain you and let you practice needlework so that we can get married to you. Nowadays, he recruits soldiers from time to time. Your father has chosen several families who don't want to marry you satisfy." Lu Yuzhu looked disdainful. "How can there be any good families in this town? How much money they have will be confiscated. I will marry into a wealthy family who is an official." Mrs. Wu rolled her eyes at her. "Why should a wealthy official like you? Your father is not a big shot. Your father is looking for people who are also well-matched in the town." Wu said with rare clarity. Lu Yuzhu pouted, "I don't want it. There is a small shop, 1 or 200 acres of land, do you think it is a lot? How much money is that? That's what they call a shop in Linlang Pavilion. I heard that his jewelry shops are everywhere. There are also people in the family who are officials in the court." Mrs. Wu didn't want her to have such great ambitions, so she turned to look at her. "Have you met the shopkeeper of his family? I asked you why you always like to run to his shop. You damn girl, the shopkeeper has a wife. The shop doesn't belong to him." Lu Yuzhu was disdainful. "How can I like him? He is just a shopkeeper, and he is not from the young master." Wu's eyes widened. "You still have a crush on the young master's family? What kind of character is he that can be attracted to you? Why don't you like me? What's wrong with me?" "Mom, you said I look like you, a weakling, and that's what men like." Wu was choked. "I don't know why Yuzhu fell in love with that young master's family. They didn't come here even once a year. My home and his home are worlds apart. This damn girl has such an unrealistic dream, it's really sad." Su Qingnao didn't know that Lu Yuzhu's love had blossomed, so she hugged a few pieces of cloth and prepared to go back to her room. Halfway through, I thought about it and changed direction. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha Jiaoye 11U. Chapter 49. Suqing'an turned around and went to the kitchen to find Aunt Zhou. She had more important things to do, and it didn't make sense that she should complete the filial piety that Wu, the daughter-in-law, should show. As a granddaughter-in-law, she naturally had her own filial piety. Besides, filial piety didn't have to be made by making 2 sets of clothes herself. Suqing'an brought a few pieces of cloth to Aunt Zhou and asked her to help make 2 sets of clothes for Grandpa and Grandma Lu Bachan. Aunt Zhou was very happy that there was work to do at home again. Last time she took the work from Suqing'an, it only took a few days for the mother-in-law and daughter to get 1 or 2 taels of wages. The cloth scraps were also left, and they were pieced together to make a small piece of clothing for the youngest son, and a few pairs of soles. Madame Su also taught the youngest son to make a ball with the hard feathers of a white goose, and taught him how to hit it with a racket. The youngest son was very happy, and he played with the ball with his friends in the alley every day, hitting it with you and me, and he was very happy, attracting a bunch of children to watch, and he played happily every day. Don't worry, madam. I will definitely tell them to do a good job and make sure they do the work carefully. Don't worry, Suqing'an was very confident about their work. After giving the instructions, she went out. She had inspected several main streets a few days ago and had a rough idea in her mind. Today, she really went to the brothel to explain her purpose. Madam, you want to find a bigger shop, with a large backyard, a well, and rooms for people to live in. It doesn't matter whether it is new or old, and the decoration is not important. Is that right? Suqing'an nodded. The other party glanced at her. Madam, don't you want the one on the 4 main streets? Yes. Although the main streets have a large flow of people, the rent is also expensive, and the business she wants to do is special, so she doesn't need to be on the main street. She wants the kind of concentrated residential area, with a big front shop and a big backyard. The middle-aged brothel, whose surname is Li, lives in the town. He went over Suqing'an's requirements in his mind, flipped through the book in his hand, and after a long time, he said, there are a few shops. I just don't know if you are buying or renting it. What is the rent price, and what is the buy price? The Liya people looked at Suqing'an and saw that she looked calm, and they were not sure where she came from. They didn't expect that such a young lady with inconspicuous clothes could afford to buy a shop. They didn't dare to look down on her and said, based on your requirements, such a shop would cost at least 200 taels. If you rent it, it would cost at least 5 taels per month. If you rent it, it would start from half a year, pay it quarterly, and pay a deposit of 1 month. Pay once every 3 months, pay 3 and deposit 1. That means she has to pay at least 20 taels at the beginning, and then she has to prepare goods, decorate, and hire people. Even if she is generous, the money in her hand can only last for 2 months in the case of complete loss. Li Yaoran saw Suqingmei was silent and felt that this deal might not be successful. Whose lady is this? She came and said she wanted to rent a shop. Business is not so easy to do. The monthly rent is 5 taels, so at least the monthly turnover must be doubled, plus the labor, at least 6 taels must be earned to avoid losses. It is really difficult to do business without strength and background. I thought the lady was going to give up, but I heard her say, then Li Yaoran, take me to have a look. Ah, is it really going to be rented? Suqingmei saw that he did not move, and asked him with her eyes. Ah, I will take the lady there right away. Wait for me to get the key. Okay. After he got the key and they walked on the road, Suqing'an found that his legs were a little. Oh, don't mind, my lady. I was born with long and short legs. But it doesn't affect my walking, and it doesn't affect me taking you to see the shop. Suqing'an shook her head. I didn't mean that. Li Yaran smiled. Suqing'an was afraid that he would misunderstand, so she smiled and said, in fact, you are lucky to be like this. You can live safely after all. I just sent my man away yesterday. He was conscripted into the army. He was reluctant to leave home and said that he wished his father would break his legs so that he wouldn't have to go. Li Yaran laughed, that's right. Although my legs can't do anything else, it saved me from being a human target on the battlefield. In this way, I'm lucky. After saying that, he laughed. The two of them were finally not so unfamiliar, and they talked all the way. Oh, so you are the new wife of Bachan. Ah, did you know him? Suqing'an listened quietly, wondering if Li Ya had some special relationship with that guy, who kept saying good things about him along the way. Bocheng's mother died early, and his father didn't care much about him. Now that you're married, you should live a good life with him. Although there are no eyes on the battlefield, if he knew that someone was waiting for him at home, he would definitely try his best to survive. Yes, Suqing'an felt sad when he heard what he said. If a person has no attachment to the world, he will either become a monk or end his life. She hoped that Lu Bachan could also be nostalgic and live well. The two of them talked while walking, and they didn't feel bored on the road anymore. Li Yaran's business ability is very outstanding. He knows every house and shop in the streets and alleys. Which ones are for rent and which ones are for sale, at what prices, what information is there about the seller, why they want to sell or rent, all the information is stored in his mind. He even knew which villages and townships near the town had fields for rent. Suqing'yu obtained a lot of information. I thought that if I made money in the future, I would ask him to take me with me to buy land, and I would also become a person with a house, a shop, a farm, and land. I even looked at a few places, because Suqing'yu didn't pay attention to the internal and external conditions of the shop. She didn't ask for anything inside. She didn't run a restaurant or restaurant. She didn't want tables or chairs. It was best to have one. Only if the house is empty can she renovate it. Soon Li Yaran took her to pick a shop. On Northeast Street in the inner city, there are many residents here, and the street is quite spacious. Most of the shops are houses with people living in the back. It is not far from the entrance of the town. The shops are spacious, the ceilings are high, there is a well in the backyard, and there is a warehouse. There are stables for cattle and horses, and people can live in the left and right wing rooms. The shop had just been renovated, so she didn't need to make any major changes. Suqing'neo was very satisfied after reading it and decided on the spot. Li Yaran was also very happy, so he said he would help her make an appointment with the landlord first, and ask her to come over with money to sign the deed and pay the money tomorrow morning. Suqing'yu agreed, paid for the teeth, said goodbye to him, and walked around the vegetable market for a long time before returning to the Lu family. She didn't go out in the afternoon. She just wrote and drew in the house, thinking about the things to do and the money to open the shop. Shen Shizhong, Aunt Zhou came to call her, saying that her father was looking for her. Father! Didn't we just meet yesterday? Why did you come here today? Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 50. Dad, why are you here? As soon as Suqing'yu walked into the courtyard, she saw Su's father walking towards her. Hey! Something happened. Suqing'neo led Su's father to the main room where guests were entertained. Seeing his sad face, she poured him a cup of tea. Dad, please drink some tea first to moisten your mouth. Hey, okay. Dad, did something happen at home? Father Su's face was filled with sadness. He put the cup on the table and shook his head. There's nothing wrong at home. It's your aunt. My aunt? What's wrong? Dad, have you visited her house? When Suqing'yu got married, Aunt Su's family only asked people to send gifts, but no one came. Father Su was a little worried. When Su Yawen got married and his family didn't come, I wanted to take a look. Due to various reasons, I couldn't go. I didn't go to Su Yawen's house until I saw her off. Only then did I know something had really happened. My eldest uncle was crushed by a boulder in the stone field, and one of his legs was bruised and broken. Ah, how did you do this? How are you doing? He woke up, but his internal organs were pressed. Now he can't even breathe. He bleeds when he coughs. One of his legs is also broken. Your aunt sold all 5 acres of land at home and borrowed some from your eldest cousin's mother-in-law's family. Bought wild ginseng to die, but now he is awake, but he has no money to treat his legs. Your uncle insists on asking your aunt to take him home, saying that he can't be cured in the hospital for 1 tael a day, and the whole family is here. The county still needs food and drink. Su Qingyu sighed. It was the same in ancient and modern times. Poor people couldn't afford medical treatment. What did the doctor say? The doctor said that the internal injuries can be cured after a few months of treatment, but if the legs are not cured, they say that once the meridians are necrotic, they can only be cut off. He said that if they are cured, even though they cannot be cured, at least the legs can live and become lame. It can be used. Su Qingyu nodded. It would be inconvenient to cut it off. Even if it is lame, it can still walk and run on both legs. Uncle refuses to treat me. Father Su shook his head. He said that the family had no money and refused to treat him. Everything that should be sold was sold, except for the few mud and thatched huts, which were worthless and no one wanted them. Your uncle felt sorry for Qian and asked the doctor to amputate his legs. If it can be cured, it must be cured in a farmhouse. It is inconvenient to do anything without a leg. Dad also advised him the same way, and your aunt and cousin also talked about treatment. But they have already borrowed the money, and it is not enough. Dad can't bear to see your uncle half dead. Your aunt has lived a miserable life. Your biological mother died a long time ago. She took care of everything on her own, and her father was the one who raised her. Your stepmother married her to a family in the mountains with only a few acres of land. They didn't even have an acre of land, and they had to rely on others to work in the quarry, working to support the family. Your cousin was drafted into the army the year before last, and last year your cousin-in-law also abandoned her children and ran away. Your cousin has not yet gotten married, and they have cultivated 5 acres of wasteland, which is only enough to feed the family. There's not even a bit left. Su Qingyu was silent and said, there was an accident at the quarry. Didn't the quarry pay compensation? Su's father was a little angry after hearing this. No compensation at all. He also said that your uncle chipped a good piece of stone and asked your uncle to pay for it. Fortunately, your uncle's workers helped to speak up, so the employer said that he would not pay compensation, but also fired your uncle. Su Qingyu let out a long sigh. Since ancient times, her thin arms could not twist her thighs. Su's father saw Su Qingyu frowning and not speaking, and he didn't know how to speak. Dad, if you have anything to say, just say it. Su's father was a little embarrassed to say, that's right, Dad came here today because he wanted you to ask your father-in-law to see if you can borrow some money from him. Seeing your uncle lying on the bed with a dead look on his face, Dad is really heartbroken. Dad originally didn't plan to come to you, so you just got married. Now that the son-in-law has left, I don't want you to look at their faces. However, your aunt is too pitiful. She has never enjoyed a single day of happiness. Father Su's eyes turned red as he spoke. I went to see your second aunt. I originally thought that she married well, and her husband's family owns land and a shop, so I could lend you some money. But she said that the shop needs funds to turn around, and she didn't have much, so she just borrowed it. 1 or 2. This second aunt is also amazing. Sure enough, it didn't come from a mother's womb, so she couldn't feel the same way as her father. Dad, Please wait for me here for a while. Sukingyu turned around and went back to her room. I took 50 taels of silver notes and gave them to Sue's father. Dad, take these 50 taels and give them to your aunt first, so that your uncle can treat your leg. We will slowly figure out how to pay for the rest. Sue's father looked shocked. Here, where did you get so much money? Your son-in-law saved it? Dad, give it to your aunt. I originally wanted to use the money to start a small business, and I have a good eye on the shop. Now that my aunt wants to use it, I will lend it to my uncle for leg treatment first. Sue's father looked at the banknote blankly. This is so much. Originally, my father only planned to borrow 10 taels and 20 taels from my father-in-law, but your father secretly gave me 2 taels at home. Now that he has all this money, your uncle also the leg can be cured, but no matter what, we have to let him save the leg. Sukingyu nodded. Well, Dad, you go ahead. Do you want me to come with you? Father Su shook his head. Dad can go alone. It's not easy for you as a newlywed daughter-in-law to run around. In a few days, your uncle's mood will be more stable, and Dad will take you to his house to visit. Good. Sukingyu watched Sue's father go out and let out a long sigh. It seems that tomorrow's appointment cannot be signed. She wants to make money more and more now. I want to earn a lot of money, otherwise I won't be able to afford medical treatment. She didn't want to ask her grandfather to sue her grandmother if she got sick, and she went around to borrow money and looked at other people's faces. Freedom of wealth must first solve the problem of freedom to eat and drink, then freedom to see a doctor, then freedom to buy a house and shop, and then. The short-term goal is to first solve the problem of freedom to eat, drink and see a doctor, and the medium-term goal is the freedom to buy houses, shops, fields, and land. Sukingyu, you can do it? Looking at the remaining 10 taels of silver in her purse, Sukingyu became depressed. She couldn't pay the rent. She really liked that shop. It was big and spacious, with a big backyard, a well, a room, and a warehouse. It was really worth 5 taels, and someone might have robbed it if she trembled. 20 taels, where can I get 20 taels? The next day, at the appointed time, Sukingyu showed up on time. The owner of the shop almost appeared at the front and back of her teeth. Sukingyu took a look at the owner of the shop. He was a very kind-hearted old man. Sukingyu breathed a sigh of relief. When Li Yaoren took out the lease agreement, Sukingyu pressed down on the agreement. He smiled at the boss and said, "You are as old as my grandfather, so I ask you to thank me. I have some special circumstances today, and I would like to ask for your understanding." Seeing Li Yaoren and the kind-hearted Uncle Xie, he looked at her doubtfully. Sukingyu organized her words and said, "I am very satisfied with your shop, but I don't have enough money today." Li Yaoren frowned, and Uncle Xie leaned on the back of the chair and looked at Sukingyu. "You little lady, don't you want to be empty-handed? If you don't have the money, I don't need it. After all the hard work, there are many people waiting to rent, including you." After saying that, he stood up to leave. Sukingyu hurriedly stood up and stopped him. "Thank you, uncle, don't be in a hurry. You sit down first and listen to me slowly. I won't waste your time for long. You little lady are not sincere." "Uncle, I am very sincere. Yesterday I handed over the tooth money, and there are still 2 taels of silver. Then are you going to chip in the money or not? You've already paid 2 taels of silver, but today you say you're not going to chip in the money? Are you just throwing away 2 taels of silver for fun?" After the old man finished speaking, he kept slandering, "Whose wife is this? There is no man coming out with her, so she is not clear-headed." You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha 11u. Chapter 51. Sukingyu saw that the old man was a little angry and quickly comforted him. Uncle, I'm really satisfied with your shop, and I really want to rent it. I'm already planning how to decorate it. Yesterday I scraped together the money, but last night I lent it to a sick relative. Seeing the uncle's disbelieving expression, I had no choice but to tell the truth. There are many stone quarries in the county next door. You know, right? My relatives were working in the quarry, and their legs were crushed by rocks. The owner of the quarry refused to pay for it, and even said that he had broken the stone and wanted to charge him. Pay money. The family spent a lot of money to treat him, and even selling several acres of land was not enough. My uncle felt sorry for the money and said he would rather go home and wait for death. Do you think we can just watch? Sukingneo saw his kind-hearted appearance and bet that he was an empathetic person, so she decided to tell the truth and make things worse. The uncle was indeed touched. I know the stone quarry you are talking about in the county next door. I have often heard of accidents in the stone quarry over the years, injuring and killing people. But there are people behind the stone quarry owners, and a large part of the tax revenue of the entire county next door comes from inside. Come on, every magistrate's political performance depends on the quarry, so we ordinary people can't help them. That is to say, my aunt was married to that place by my step-grandmother. There was not even an acre of land there, and she lived on the stone quarry. The eldest son was drafted into the army and left, and the wife also abandoned her son and ran away. My aunt has been living there for the rest of her life. She has never been blessed. How will she survive if my eldest uncle is gone? Then Uncle Xie sighed after hearing this. When Li Yaoren heard that this was the reason, he quickly put in good words for Sukingyu. She just married into our town. She is the eldest daughter-in-law of Lu Ji from South Street. His eldest son's name is Lu Bachan. You know, the day before yesterday just been taken away. The uncle came back from another county to take care of his old age. He didn't know Lu Bachan, but he still knew Lu Ji from South Street. Then why don't you borrow some from your father-in-law? My family has opened a shop, so why don't I have 20 taels of silver? Sukinjeo didn't know how to reply for a while. The Li Yaoren glanced at her and said to Uncle Xie, Uncle, you don't know, her mother-in-law is not a relative. Oh, Uncle Xie had the same expression on his face. Sukingyu smiled at him. The other party looked at Sukingneo, and then he was silent and said, I can rent the shop to you, but I'm not a charity owner, so I can't waive the rent. Sukingyu felt happy and said, you misunderstood. I didn't say I wouldn't pay you rent, so who am I? I wanted you to defer payment for 2 months. At that time, I will not only give you the principal, but also give you the rent. I'll give you 2 more cents. Sukingyu originally wanted to do it for a month, but she didn't know if she could make so much money in a month. Oh? Are you so sure that your shop can make money in 2 months? 22 taels, you have to make at least 15 taels a month to ensure your labor, flow, and turnover. Upon hearing this, Sukingyu hurriedly complimented, wow, I didn't expect you to know how to run a business very well. The uncle snorted arrogantly, otherwise, why do you think I bought that shop? Back then, I started to make a fortune by buying a shop in Fengting town. Maybe your father was not even born, and you are even more so. No. Sukingyu never dared to underestimate anyone. After hearing what he said, he quickly complimented him a few more words, making him feel extremely comfortable. What you say sounds nice, but I don't know if you can make money. If you can't make money in 2 months, just spread your hands and say there is nothing you can do. I can't do anything to you, right? Sukingyu glanced at Li Yaoren, and Li Yaoren understood the cry for help in her eyes. He turned around and said to Uncle Xie, others may be worried, but don't worry about her. Her Lu family's shop is still there. It has been open for more than 10 years. I don't think it will move in the next few years. Besides, he still has other stores in the countryside. Even if you want to sell 100 acres of land, it will be entrusted to me. Although Sukinjeo didn't want to be associated with the Lu family, she would not refuse if she could use the Lu family's strength. He hurriedly agreed, "That's right. Moreover, before my husband left, he transferred the ownership of his maternal grandfather's land to me. He said that if he couldn't come back, he would let me take the land and remarry, and I wouldn't be able to pay you back. I can repay you by selling a few acres of land." When the old man heard this, he praised him and gave a thumbs up. "This is your man." Sukingyu smiled, "Well, he is not bad." Li Yaoren also nodded, "We all know her man. From now on, if she wants to live under the eyes of her stepmother-in-law, she must make plans for herself." The old man didn't know what he thought of and fell silent. Sukingyu glanced at him and said, "How about I deposit the land deed with Li Yaoren? If I still don't pay the money, Li Yaoren will help me sell a few acres of land and pay it back to you." Then Uncle Xia raised his head and looked at her. "That's not necessary. I believe you once. Anyway, your shop is there and your home is in the town. I'm not afraid of you running away." In the end, the two parties signed an agreement, but Mr. Xia left with only the agreement and confiscated not a cent of the money. Sukingyu felt extremely sorry and sent him away for a long time. Li Yaoren also said that she had met a good person. Sukingyu breathed a sigh of relief. "She's pretty lucky. I had already planned it, but if it didn't work, I would mortgage the land deed and borrow some money." She was confident she could pay it back. But Lu Bachan's grandfather's land was close to her heart, and she didn't want to move it at the last moment. When the matter was more than half settled, Sukingyu took the key and went to the shop. She looked inside and out, then found a construction team in the town that built houses for people, and asked them to help with some repairs. Because it didn't require much work, the other party said that it would take 500 yen a day to make it. Suchingen entrusted the shop to them. Next, she wanted to make some shelves, so she thought of Grandpa Su's family in the village. But she had heard from her father before that Grandpa Su's family was now overwhelmed with orders, and the orders from the village alone had to wait in line for a long time. After thinking about it, she found a carpenter's shop in the town, drew a blueprint and asked them to help make a few rows of shelves, and asked for 2 beds to be placed in the wing room. After finishing these, Suchingen walked home, thinking about where to find manpower as she walked. She would definitely not be able to handle the work of opening a shop by herself. There must be at least 2 people in the shop, one to look after the shop, one to work in the backyard, and one to run outside to receive the goods. So at least 2 people must be hired. When Suchingen first thought about opening a shop, she thought of her sister. It is more reassuring to use her sister than anyone else. And her brother-in-law is now ignorant of life and death, leaving her sister and Yaya in that house to live under the face of the uncle and aunt, which makes her feel distressed. They are not her parents-in-law. Her sister not only has to take care of Yaya, but also has to do housework. She is in her early 20s and looks haggard. In addition to the staff in the store, there is also the problem of supply. There are many things that cannot be thought of. Once you think about them, you will be overwhelmed. It feels like a lot of things are squeezed together and can't be sorted out. It's not easy to make some money. Sukingmei had just arrived home and painted for a while when her father came to the door again. "Madam, she has a tender heart." Author, Bhjiaoye 11U. Chapter 52. In addition to her father, the eldest aunt's youngest son Zhou Dajiang also came with her. Reading. "Cousin, thank you. Lend me some money to help my father with his leg." Zhou Dajiang looked a little haggard. He wanted to pay her a big respect when he saw her, but was stopped by Suchingen. "We are a family, so there is no need for this. It's good to be able to help." She took the two to the main hall to sit and talk. Wu was at home, and Aunt Jo also told her, but she didn't come out, and Suqing'an didn't care. It's okay to maintain superficial harmony. She will do what she should do as a daughter-in-law, and she will also fulfill her filial piety, including Lu Bachan's share. But she doesn't need to live by anyone's face. After sitting down, she heard that the eldest aunt got the money and persuaded her uncle to stay in Pingchuan County to treat his leg. Suqing'an breathed a sigh of relief and asked Zhou Dejiang, "Are you all in the county?" The 15-year-old boy is already half a laborer. Now that his father has fallen and his elder brother is gone, the boy's eyes have become more determined. "My third sister has taken Jinhai back today. I will run between the two places. The family fields have been sold. I am going to find work in another stone quarry so that I can pay back my cousin's money as soon as possible." Suqing'an looked at his thin body and shook her head. "There is no hurry to pay back the money. With your body, how can you chisel stones? You may not be able to carry the load." Zhou Dejiang puffed out his chest and pretended to be able to do it. "I can do it. There are other jobs in the stone quarry, I can do it." Su's father followed and persuaded him. But the 15-year-old boy already has his own ideas. He will be the pillar of the family in the future and is eager to support the family. Suqing'an thought about it, looked at the cousin in front of him again, and then he had an idea in his mind. He said, "I will open a shop in a few days. I need a young man to run around. Do you want to come to Fengting town to help my cousin? Before you earn enough for the shop, rent, food, and accommodation are provided. My cousin will give you 500 coins a month, and it will increase depending on the situation in the future." Zhou Dejiang didn't react for a moment and stood there in a daze. Su's father reacted and asked, "My daughter, you want to open a shop? What shop? Do your in-laws know? You are a newlywed, do they agree that you can show up in public?" This matter has indeed not been told to Lu's father. But Suqing'an still has the idea of a modern independent woman. If she wants to do something, she will do it. She doesn't care about anyone's eyes, and there is no such thing as showing up in public in her mind. "I haven't said it yet." Lu's father was a little anxious when he heard it. You child, why don't you tell your in-laws about such a big thing? You are married now, not in your mother's house, you can do whatever you want." Seeing that Suqing'an didn't listen, Lu's father became more anxious, and got up and pulled her. "Come on, you will go with me to meet the in-laws." Suqing'an was a little reluctant. It's not that she didn't want to say it, but the shop hasn't opened yet. Now the shop has just been rented, and she wants to wait a few days before talking about it. Now Su's father pulled her up, so she had to get up. Then Zhou Dejiang reacted and rushed to Suqing'an. "Cousin, I am willing, I am willing. I will be your clerk, and I don't want that much money. When you make money, just give me some money." 500 coins, his father worked so hard chiseling stones, but only earned 1 or 2 taels a month, and food and lodging were not provided. Even if he went to the stone quarry to find work, he might not be able to get so much money. He could work as a clerk in the shop, learn how to treat people, and not have to do hard work in the stone quarry. He could also stay with his cousin, and no one would beat or scold him. Zhou Dejiang immediately reacted and happily ran to Suqingmei to agree, fearing that Suqingmei would change her mind if he spoke too slowly. Su's father held Suqingmei's hand and looked at him, and was stunned by his eager look. Suqingmei also laughed out loud. "Okay, then you come to work as a clerk for your cousin. My cousin just rented the shop today, and it will take a few days to prepare for the decoration. You go home and pack it up, and come back in 2 days." Okay, Zhou Dejiang swept away his melancholy and his face became more lively. Su's father was stunned. This girl rented the shop quietly? Where did you get the money? It's the 50 taels. I was supposed to pay the rent today, but I had no money after paying it to my uncle. The shop owner was kind enough to defer the payment for 2 months, and I will pay 2 more taels of interest then. I still have 10 taels in my hand, which I will use for decoration and stocking. It should be enough to tighten the belt. Small business. Su's father opened his mouth wide. He had been digging for food in the soil all his life, and it took him several years to save more than 200 coins under the nose of his stepmother. His daughter was going to use dozens of taels to do business all of a sudden? He never dared to think about business. How could someone without money and no backing have the idea of doing business? You child, how can you be so brave? What if you lose money? How will you live if you lose all the money your son-in-law left for you? Dad, don't worry, I know what's going on. Seeing that Father Su still looked incredible, Su Qing'an briefly told him about her plan. Seeing that Father Su was still frowning, she comforted him, Dad, don't worry, it's just a small business, the loss won't be much, it's just 1 season's rent. And I still have 15 acres of land left by his grandparents, I can eat the rent, I won't starve. After hearing this, Father Su still looked worried about what her in-laws would say about her, so he took her to find Lu Shenke with a worried look on his face. Father Lu was very enthusiastic when he saw Father Su, and took them to the backyard of the shop to sit and talk. After hearing about Su Qing'an's uncle, he gave Zhou Dejiang 5 taels of silver. Zhou Dejiang knelt down and thanked him. Father Su saw that Father Lu was in a good mood, so he told him that Su Qingyu was going to open a store for business. After saying that, she looked at him anxiously, fearing that he would be angry and that he would make her daughter look bad. Lu Shenke really didn't expect that Su Qingjao would have such an idea. A woman's family would actually want to open a shop and do business? For the first time, I took a closer look at this daughter-in-law. The person was chosen by the Wu family, and he didn't know much about this daughter-in-law. The acquaintances in town were reluctant to marry their daughters to Bo Cheng, and he understood. If he hires a country girl, he himself is from the country, so he won't dislike her status. Seeing that she has been married since she was married, she is still doing her job, and her cooking skills are good, so I feel quite satisfied. After Bo Cheng left, he felt even more satisfied when he saw her settling down. He doesn't usually meet her. Apart from seeing her when eating, he doesn't have much communication with her. Father-in-laws should also avoid suspicion. After Bo Cheng left, he wanted Wu to take more care of her in the future. Before I opened my mouth to Mrs. Wu, I never thought that my daughter-in-law wanted to open a shop and do business. Su Qingnao saw Father Lu looking at her intently and let her look at him. Told him her thoughts. Father Lu was in a daze after hearing this. Su Qingyu said, Dad, no one has done this business in town, and I don't know what it will be like in the end. But the cost is low and I won't lose much money. If the situation is not good, it's too late to turn back after closing the shop. And I also want to save some money. If Bo Cheng becomes successful in the future and he has no family background, I also want to support him financially. Father Lu was still immersed in the business Su Qingyu mentioned. He really couldn't imagine that there was such a business. He has been in business for more than 10 years, but he never thought of going to that area. Hearing her talk about Bo Cheng again, and seeing her willingness to plan for Bo Cheng, I felt a little touched in my heart. He looked at her and said, Did Bo Cheng tell you anything when he left?